Hello and welcome to First Flight, a Star Trek Enterprise rewatch podcast where we are watching and discussing each episode of Enterprise in succession. First Flight is a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions Network.
This is Commander Tucker of Enterprise. We've got some information you're going to want to hear.
Welcome, all you Enterprise fans, to the first part of the First Flight Season 2 wrap-up Bonanza. I'm your co-host, Abby.
And I'm your co-host, Chris.
And over the next two episodes, we'll be going over all of Season 2 and discussing each main character, plus a few secondary ones, the big season story arcs, all of the stats of our ratings from the season, and, to top it all off, we're giving out a golden Porthos, golden view screen on, and a final Vulcan's verdict for the season. It's a fun-filled look back on what we loved about Season 2 of Enterprise. So tonight, we get to start with the character spotlight. We'll be talking about each of the 7 main characters and a few secondary characters, Trek rank style. That's our play cousin on the network here. We're distilling our thoughts down to a 5-word summary and a hashtag with a feature episode, and a brief chat after. Next episode, we'll tackle the themes, the data, and all those golden carrot ball awards.
Also, just to let all you members of the Carrot Crew know, we did not share our picks, words, or hashtags ahead of time. Any similarities are a surprise to us as well. We've discussed all these characters in huge amounts of detail in the previous episodes, so we are really just distilling it down here to their essence. But before we begin our discussion, we need to issue, as always, our read alert.
Tactical alert. All hands to stations.
There are potential spoilers ahead. We might end up talking about any part of the series at any time, so you have been warned.
All right, I'm really excited for this. So, Chris, let's deploy our subspace amplifiers and get going. So, as we said before, we each came up with 5 words and a hashtag for each character in relation to this season. We're also going to have a little feature episode in there that just kind of is, if you want to look at a great episode for this character, this is the one we pick. So, Chris, why don't you start us off with your picks for our fearless leader, Captain Jonathan Archer?
Yes, my 5 words. Captain Archer to the bridge. Hashtag is the bridge. And my episode is The Breach, where Archer functions as the bridge between the Denobulans and the Antaran, right? So we talk a lot this season about Archer being the bridge between species. This one-on-one bridge, slowly like representing how the Federation will be bridging species and worlds and quadrants later on. So that had to be in my 5 words and a hashtag. And I think the breach, there was a lot of examples of him being a bridge this season, but the breach was a particularly strong example of his bridgeness.
That is really beautiful because you're right. We have 100% talked about this as like a metaphor the entire season. And I that's a perfect hashtag. And it is such an Archer thing, more than it is almost any other captain, because it is the slow build of him bringing together the seeds of the Federation. So absolutely beautiful choice. And you know what? The Breach is such an interesting episode because it's got so many different layers in there, and that is definitely one of the highlights of it. So wonderful call out, and not one that I expected, which I really like.
Well, yeah, because the breach is in your mind Phlox episode, but it's also an Archer episode. He has a lot going on there.
Yeah, he does. And those are really good moments between the two of them in there, which is always such a standout relationship to me.
Okay, Abby, I got to hear yours. What's yours for Archer?
This is funny because I kind of took a different lens on it. So my 5 words are leadership, reflection, emotion, and growth. Hashtag also a pilot. Because how many times this season was Archer being a pilot a huge important plot point, right?
Yeah.
So I waffled with my episode here between two, but I ended up having to go with First Flight, partly because
Yeah, of
we are
course.
the First Flight podcast, but also because this is just such a great character study of Archer and shows all those words that I pulled out. You know, he is leadership. He's reflecting this entire season. He's got
Hmm.
so much emotion in him and so much growth. And people, you know, criticize him over and over for not knowing, for not doing, for not being what Picard or Cisco or Janeway or Burnham or anyone else would do. Well, you're right, because he was first and he was
Yeah.
figuring it out. And the amount of times that he's looked back and taken lessons from what he's done right and not right, all the ways he's showing other people these things, he really has grown. We said it over and over again. The change in him from when they start in season one to the end of season two, even before we get to the expanse and we have the big tone shift, is tremendous. You are watching somebody coming into this captaincy and finding the groove, finding that pocket of where he can be that leader. And he's also a pilot all the time this season. So I had to focus on that. But special call out to Judgment for also being an incredibly good Archer episode there.
It really is. And First Flight, I really thought about this one a lot because it's
Yeah,
so strong in featuring Archer in all the ways you described. So how could it not be one of the contenders for the essential Archer episode of the season?
absolutely. All right. So after we talked about our fearless leader, we need to go into our fabulous first officer, to Paul. So I
Mm,
have to say that both seasons I have done these wrap ups now. We've done them like this, Trek rank style. And I always find T'Pol the hardest one for me to distill down. And
mm,
maybe that's because she's one of my favorites and I really resonate with a lot of her stories and stuff. But
hmm.
I always feel like she is such a complex character that this one
Yes.
always just gets me. But when
Yeah.
I find it, I'm so happy with it. So here we go. My five words are growing trust, found her tribe, hashtag
Mm.
principled intensity. And I absolutely had to pick stigma as the episode
Oh,
because
yes.
I
Yes.
love that episode. And to Paul in that episode is everything. And
Yep.
she wears her robes. So, you know what? On top of it all, there's not even dumb pajamas to make me go, it was really good, except no, it's just a great episode. And you know, I feel like this was to Paul this season, the growing trust, but by
Mm,
the end, she is advocating for herself to be the person who Archer needs to help
hmm.
this mission into the expanse. She has found her family. She found her tribe. Like we say that about the Trek people, you know, the tribes gather at the conventions. Well, she
Hmm.
found her. She found where she belongs. She left the high command. Like those
Mm.
final conversations between her and Saval, they're amazing because she is coming to the realization that her life is going to take a different path than what she expected, and she's 100% fine with that. And principled intensity had to be the way I went with her
Yeah.
hashtag because she this season you see those principles, you see those ethics, you see her strong and tough, and like we talked about moments where she's really, you know, being the commander and she's, you know, dressing down Trip or something and it is fierce.
Yes. That's where my mind was going.
Yeah, but it's fierce in that way where a righteous fierceness, I guess. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
really feel that this season has so much growth with T'Pol and so much growth with T'Pol before we get to the whole like Trellium addiction and everything. And a lot of threads are pulled through
Mm-hmm.
here. Her
Mm-hmm.
her marriage, her feelings on Vulcan, the when she has the Pinar syndrome. There's so much going on here. And she is such an underappreciated character that I just want to sing her praises over and over again, especially this season, which doesn't always get the spotlight that it should. So that was just a lot.
That was a lot. And I again, we've taken a slightly different approach to Paul.
Ooh,
Um, so I'm just gonna go into mine if that's okay, and then we can
yeah,
contrast
for
and talk
sure.
about that. My five words: loyal advisor who recognizes potential. Hashtag you put it
Ooh,
over the top. And my episode is Shockwave Part 2. Like all the way at the
Oh,
very beginning of this season,
yeah,
she has chosen her tribe because she calls out Vulcans. Like
yeah,
that's the beginning of this. Oh, these are my people. I'm defending them
yeah,
against, wait, they were my people, but now these are my
yeah.
people. And I love that moment we've called out and described where Archer is, really doing his thigh day and he's kneeling there or just
Yeah.
squatting there by her and says, "You put it over the top." Because
Hmm.
from then on, she is really advising him, very loyal, and she recognizes the potential of humanity. And we see that in her story with Tamir, right?
With Tamir.
Yeah.
Yep.
hmm So I just think this encapsulates her character for me this season, that she's really grown into being this advisor for the crew, but especially Archer. You need me, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
she recognizes his potential and humanity in generals enough that she's, like you said, this is her tribe now. She's owning it. She's one of them. So that's my pick. Shockwave Part 2 for T'Pol.
That is a really good one. And when you think about how this season bookended her, it started off with her choosing humanity and putting it over the top and ended with
Mhm.
her choosing humanity and going off with them. It could not
Yeah.
be a better,
Perfect.
she's that's the Oreos of this
Yeah.
this season. Those are the cookie parts, and they're absolutely perfect. And I love the fact that she is so complex and that she can do so much with just all the wonderful story pieces, and
Mhm.
it's all starting to come together. The tapestry of T'Pol is starting to come together, and it's beautiful to see how multi-layered it is.
Well, now I do need a T'Pol tapestry to hang up. So
Ooh, done
just
in
add
like
it.
the Vulcan
Uh-huh.
style
With
with like the
script.
pretty script down the side. Yes.
I want her
Yes.
name in Vulcan script.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I want a
Yeah.
picture of her in her robes.
The
Like just
Vulcan
I would feel
robes
so
of judgment.
of judgment. Preview for next week, Carrot Crew. I have kept a list of all of the outfit
Yeah.
titles that we've given throughout the season, and that will be a special feature. So
Oh,
I'm pumped on that one.
me
So
too.
if there are any weavers out there on the crew, I would be happy to commission you to make a T'Pol weaving like that for me while hanging. I don't tapestry, whatever you want to call it. That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. You pull on one thread and the whole thing unravels. All right. That wasn't the first time in my youth that I got into a scrap with a Nausicaan. So I am going into Trip now. All right. That's our next character.
You are. Let's finish up our big three.
Okay. So my 5 words. Dual heart of the ship. Hashtag I'm responsible.
Oh,
And before I give the episode, so he's the dual heart of the ship. He's the heart, the emotional heart of the ship, the pathos on the crew, but he's also maintaining the heart of the ship, the engine, right?
yeah, he is.
And this ship's engine is more important than any other ship's engine except Discovery's, right? Because this is the
Yeah.
first Warp 5 and Discovery's is the first spore activated hub drive or displacement hub drive, whatever it is. So I really liked that duality of Trip's role, but also he's responsible for keeping the ship going, but also in Cogenitor, he's responsible. And
Yeah.
the reason he becomes responsible for something, a death, um, a sullied first contact is because he went with his heart, which we're not going to do justice to that the complexity of that conversation right here because we already did 3 hours. And Abby, I think we could do 4 more hours right now and come up with a different conclusion.
Yeah. If we just read out loud the text messages we had about that episode,
Yeah,
we would have 3 more hours.
because yeah, he was right. My heart agrees with him, but also he was wrong. All right.
Hmm.
So, and I can't wait for our mailbag coming up because we've collected a lot of feedback from you all on Cogenitor, and I know that's going to take up some space in our mailbag coming up. So if you have more, if you have ideas about Cogenitor, send it along to us. But anyway, that's my pick for Trip. He's the dual heart of the ship. Hashtag I'm responsible episode Cogenitor.
Oh, that's beautiful. Like that was beautifully put in the heart of the ship. Every time I say that now, which I know I have probably said dozens of times on
Hmm.
this very podcast, I'm going to think about it both ways. So that is absolutely beautiful. And you have changed my thinking on Trip for the better. Like
Oh,
I
good.
really like that he's the heart in both ways.
Well, literally, like next season,
Mm-hmm.
Archer's like, we can't live without our heart, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
grow a new one.
that's very true.
So we'll get there, but yeah. Anyway, so what are your 5 words and a hashtag for Trip?
It's funny because the word heart's going to come into play here too.
Ooh,
So, yeah. All right. So, my 5 words are diverse stories, range and change, hashtag
ooh,
heart hardens. And my episode was Dawn.
oh yeah.
So, I'm looking through all this. Okay, there was one point in this season in the middle where there were 3 of the thumbnails on Paramount Plus featuring
Yeah,
Trip
yeah,
prominently. Even on
yeah,
episodes that weren't really him, he was in
yeah.
there. He is so woven in talking about
Hmm.
tapestries to this season. So many different like versions of him. Think about him in Dead Stop. He and
Yeah.
Malcolm are, crawling around and all of that. Think about him in Marauders where he's working with the kid.
Hmm.
Think about him in Singularity where he's focusing on the chair. In
Oh
Precious
yes.
Cargo, he has a little moment. The catwalk, I
Future
mean,
tense.
Dawn, yes, future tense, uh Canamar, like there's so many in here. And then we didn't even talk about Cogenitor or the fact that he's in First Flight or the mazillions of times that he's in command throughout this season. And then the
How
expanse
about
happens.
Feasel?
And Fiesel, absolutely. I mean, there are so many different Trip moments in here, almost
Yeah.
even more versions of him this season than we see of Archer. Like the
Hmm.
range of the stories that Trip got to do. Like he got a little bit more of the funny and the romance than Archer because Archer was busy doing like big tentpole of the Federation stuff, and Trip
Yeah.
got more B plots, which meant he got to have more range, and that was just a really fun part of this season. But then you get to Dawn and you realize there's so much more and this heart in here. How many times does he throw the gun away in there, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so as fun as he can be, he is so Starfleet. He is so trying for the bigger and the better and being open hearted and being welcoming. And then the attack comes on Florida and you
Yeah.
see the change. And
Mm.
that is props
Mm.
to Connor Trenier for doing that so well. And this character who we have seen so much of this season and seen have more of these light moments, and even when they're not light moments, like we were saying in Cogenitor, it's not the same as the Florida attack. He is
Hmm.
forever changed by that moment, and to see all of that progression in 26 episodes is amazing. And he is the heart, and he does harden a little bit, but it's okay because it leads to even more good things next season.
Yeah, what you said about Trip, I hadn't thought about that we get so many variations on the Trip character because we've had that conversation about Phlox a lot this season, right? So maybe
Mm-hmm.
those two are we get the most diverse expressions of their characters in this season. I like thinking about them in that way. Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. And you know what, when we get to Flax, we'll talk more about that kind of thing. Cause I had a similar thought as well, that
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe good not to be the captain because you get a little bit more of the range of the episodes that way.
Okay, before we move on, you need to say your 5 words and a hashtag again because they were so good.
All right. My 5 words were diverse stories, range and change. And
Yeah.
my hashtag was heart hardens.
Yeah. The range and change. Brilliant. Like if it just had two
Oh,
words, range and change. That's
yeah.
Trip this
Well,
season.
and the fact that they rhyme helps too.
Well, that, yeah, I love that as well. It occurred to me we could have done haikus instead of the Trek ranks form,
Ooh,
but
you know what?
I like Trek
Next
ranks.
season, I like Trek ranks too, but next season maybe we're adding in haikus, or maybe we challenge ourselves for the finale episode to each write a season wrap up haiku. Oh my god, why did I just tell myself to do that? That's so hard.
And for the season, the themes.
Yeah.
Maybe do it for the
Mm,
themes we come up with too.
we're gonna have to think on that one. I
Yes.
have enjoyed writing the haikus.
Yeah, yeah, they've been fun. Hopefully everyone else is enjoying them. Okay. Let us know, Carrot
Also,
Crew.
volcanoes.
That's my favorite one.
That's my favorite one too.
Flippin' Duras.
Flippin' Duras. Oh my goodness. This is why I
Duras.
love doing this podcast, because all these things now make me laugh. And I hope they make you guys laugh out there. And I was just telling Chris before we recorded about how I've seen Carrot Crew hashtags pop up in other places on other forums, like where I didn't expect it. And it's so beautiful. So thanks, Carrot Crew. All right. So moving on off our big three, we are now to Malcolm Reed. And I
Hmm.
think this is going to surprise nobody
Is
when
good at
I
his
do.
job.
Well, my 5 words might be always good at his job. And my hashtag
Yep.
is loosening up. And my
Yeah.
episode here is minefield. Because,
Ah.
when you talk about Malcolm, how
Yeah.
many times have I sat here and preached Malcolm Reed is good at his job? And he is, over and over and over again. And people complain, well, that's just he's a one-note character. He's just good at his job. That's okay. He's got a really good,
Hmm.
important job, and it's not the only thing about Malcolm. Is it his primary focus? Yeah, but you know what? So are a lot of people's careers. And
Mm.
he is innovative. He's enjoys his work. He is getting better at working with other people, and just seeing him be more friendly and warm, and how his relationship with Archer evolves this season. And then he and Trip are getting even more buddy, and they can get into hijinks together and have jokes and razz each other about Feasel hitting on Trip. And it's nice to see. And I know we don't get as much Malcolm as we ever want, especially in the last 2 seasons. So it has been really nice to see how much of him is peppered in, and how many moments you just see him being competent, that if you're not looking for it, you're just like, oh yeah, Malcolm's doing an amazing thing. No,
Yeah.
Malcolm's doing an amazing thing, like,
Yeah.
all the time. So I just had to highlight that, because it is his defining characteristic, but it's a great one to be defined by, because he is getting better and better, because he's getting more and more part of this family, as we've been saying. And yeah, if I didn't pick Minefield, I would have kicked myself, because that episode is just such a nice snapshot into Malcolm, not Reed.
Yeah, I resisted choosing Minefield because it was such the main one. So I didn't choose that one.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really glad that you did. Also really loved your hashtag loosening up. Was that
Hmm.
that's what it was,
It
right?
was. Yep.
Because that you see that, especially in the Expanse. We talked about that last episode that
Yep.
he is just being this counselor Troy, like about emotions and feelings with Trip, and that is not
Yep.
where Malcolm started in the series.
No.
So
No.
I really appreciate that. And like you said, I wish we got more of that stuff going on in later episodes in the season. But I really appreciated the amount of Malcolm we got this season.
Hmm.
He had a lot to do. Sometimes it didn't involve lines, but he was always doing something. And so that goes into my pick. Can I go for that?
Okay. Absolutely.
Always ready to go all
Nice.
ins with a hyphen. It's one
Yeah,
word.
sure is.
Hashtag read alert. Obviously, I mean,
Yep.
yeah. So my episode is Shockwave Part 2
Oh, nice.
because he goes all in there. What does he do?
Yeah.
He gets pummeled.
Yeah.
And I almost made it red alert for all the blood.
Oh,
Um, right. But
yeah.
that was, a defining moment for me during this podcast for Malcolm. I always knew Mindfield was a strong one. I rewatched that a lot as just a very casual Enterprise fan. But now doing a podcast, that scene stood out to me because it showed me his commitment to the mission and to his job and to his crew. He's willing to do the hard stuff that no one else really wants to. Like he's gonna get beat to a pulp and then have a little
Hmm.
smirk while
Yes,
he's
that
doing it.
Malcolm smirk.
Yes.
Yeah. When he's getting beat or when he's blowing something up, same
Yep.
little smirk. I love it.
Yep. Yep. I knew you were gonna say that because we've said that a bunch this time. And when
Uh-huh.
he's act tactical, absolutely. And then boom, and he smiles a little bit.
Yeah, with pleasure.
With pleasure. Yeah. So,
Wow, I really cannot do a good Malcolm impression. Sorry out there.
well, now I need that as a ringtone.
There we go. I'm
Dear
sticking with Duras.
Ross, with pleasure.
Oh my god. And then carrots.
Carrots. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. So that's my pick. That's it for Malcolm. He's good at his job. He's always ready to go all in.
Yeah, and you know what? I also wanted to do a little special call out to the communicator because I really thought that was a
Mm,
beautiful one for him too. That was my
yeah.
second pick that I almost made
Me
it
too. Me
because
too.
the part between him and Archer, especially when they're talking about willing to give up their lives for this cause, and it's just a good moment. And but the reason I couldn't pick it is because I don't think it would have happened if Minefield hadn't happened. So I wanted to go back to the source of that relationship. But
Yeah.
that's another beautiful Malcolm episode. And just him patting his pockets and like looking around
Yes.
frantically in the beginning is such a relatable moment. It's yeah, I love it. Absolutely love
It's
it.
so funny that you said all that because I spent way too long rereading the script for the communicator that determined is this my Malcolm episode? Because my mind
Oh
went there first, but really that moment you mentioned that sacrifice our lives, that was really an Archer moment, right?
yeah.
They're not everyone else on the planet's not like these guys. Archer said. And so that was really more of an Archer thing for me, but that my mind went there first for Reed, and then I went to Shockwave because I just ruled out Minefield. But I'm glad you picked it because it had to be picked.
Absolutely. There's so much good stuff. It's really hard to distill down here. So
Uh-huh.
every once in a while, there's a little asterisk.
Yes. Now, speaking of good, let's talk about Hoshi.
Yes. I can't wait to hear yours.
This wasn't the best season for her, but she's still a good character. So my 5 words: the listening ear of friendship, hashtag Jello. I had to do
That's perfect.
it.
And when you hear my hashtag, it's going to be even more perfect.
Okay, yes. And my episode obviously is Dead Stop.
Yeah.
Um, I really loved the moving scenes when she comes in while Phlox is doing the autopsy and that story about the Jello. I love seeing her on the station having lunch with Mayweather. Like we don't get to hear their conversation, but we see it.
Yeah.
And it also captures her throughout the whole season. She's always coming into sick bay to listen to Phlox or to be listened by Phlox. So like friendship and listening is super important to her. She's also the communications officer, so she has to have a listening ear, right? And she's like the first tongue of friendship to other alien species out there. So there's a lot going on with Hoshi. She's vital to the ship. But really, my first feeling with her is just that interpersonal relationships that she has with her crewmates.
That's beautiful. And I love the fact that the interpersonal for our communications officer is what you
Hmm.
highlighted. And for
Course.
her that is perfect. It is
Hmm.
absolutely perfect. And that jello scene, I mean, we're laughing because it's funny and even she laughs, but that's another one of those really relatable moments when something is so
Yeah.
horrible but something
Yeah.
funny happens and you laugh and it feels both right and wrong at the same time. And
Yes.
I always think about her body language in that
Hmm.
scene, like how she's kind of hugging herself and she's kind of trying to like physically keep herself together. In fact, I don't know how much of this is Linda Park and how much of this is directing choices, but her body language in general on the show
Yes.
is pretty phenomenal. And she says a lot just by how she holds herself or how she sits or, small little movements, because she's another one who doesn't get a lot of lines. So we get a lot from the nonverbals, and it's cool.
Vanishing Point really displayed all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we talked a lot about her body language there. Okay, speaking of language, I want to hear your 5 words
All
for
right. So
Hoshi.
my 5 words are menagerie chats rock, always brilliant. I also wanted to talk about how she comes in and talks to Fox over his animals or about his animals or with his animals all the time. And that relationship really means a lot to me because we
Yeah.
hear her working through what she needs to figure out, or the decision or the issue
Hmm.
over the pets. And like her being that kind of animal lover has been a thread throughout the first two
Hmm.
seasons. And I really like it. And I like that we hear her when we hear her speaking, which isn't, like we said, isn't always the most prominent feature of an
Yeah.
episode. She's always saying something that is a that's connecting people, or that's working through something. She When you hear her figuring problems out loud, and you can hear the steps she's taking, that woman is brilliant.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
brilliant. And how many times people always think about season 3 when she tries to, throw herself off the edge and she's stopping the Zindi, adding layers. Like, I'm not knocking that. That's amazing. We'll get to that next season. But how many times has she already saved them? And we haven't even met a Zindi
Hmm.
yet. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's this is a brilliant woman. So I had to put that in there. And my hashtag, purposefully left it for now because my hashtag is carrots.
Of course. Had to be.
So we Jello and carrots. It's so perfect. 2 food hashtags for Hoshi, which I have to say, how many times do we see Hoshi in an episode in the mess hall too?
Yeah.
She's talking with people, she's chatting,
The
she's having
listening
a
era
meal, she's
friendship.
exactly, exactly. I mean, even in with Fiesel and Trip, she stays for that extra minute. And so
Hmm.
for her to be the one who has 2 food hashtags makes my heart so happy. And my episode, there's definitely an asterisk in this one, is Vanishing Point asterisk if you take off the last 10 minutes, which sounds terrible, but I love the fact that this all does take place in her brain, and we see how she views her relationships with the rest of the crew in this one, and
Mm-hmm.
how positive and caring and supportive those relationships are, and how even in her subconscious she's brilliant. She's thwarting those aliens who have the midriff bearing costumes. She's learning their language on their little transporter pad. This is what her brain does all the time, even when she's not consciously doing it. She's communicating, she's being brave, she's being brilliant, and she's interacting with people. And I love Hoshi. I maybe we can get a Hoshi series, like, a short trek of Hoshi in the future, teaching
Hmm.
language and flashing back to her time on Enterprise, because there are so many stories here.
And Linda Park has not aged. So,
No, no.
yeah, Hoshi was hard to pick because there's not like major Hoshi feature episodes except for Vanishing Point. I thought about Singularity for a bit with the carrot scene because it's been so important to our season and like the identity of the podcast now.
Yeah,
Um, hashtag Carrot Crew. But
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, Vanishing Point is an excellent episode for her. That last 10 minutes, maybe, but yeah, it's a good one. It's a good showcase for Linda Park, if nothing
It
else.
is. It is. And like we said, the body language in that one, like the choices she makes for the character of Hoshi in that episode are brilliant. So even though the writing kind of cuts the feet out from under it at the end,
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
is a really good look at how Hoshi views herself and her relationships with the crew.
Great pick.
All right, so speaking of people who don't get enough lines, let's move into Travis
Oh
here.
no.
No, I love Travis. You know this. How
Oh
much
yeah.
we pick Travis all the time when we can. So my 5 words will surprise nobody here, and it's so much with so little. Hashtag
Yo.
multi-skilled. And my episode that I pulled to feature is the catwalk. So poor Travis. I mean, Hoshi gets the short end of the stick. So does Travis. I mean, the episode, one of the episodes he's featured the most in, it's not actually him because it's just dead him,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
dead fake him, dead replicant of him. And
Yeah.
how many times has he laid on a bio bed and gone, much better, sir, when Archer asks how he's feeling? Like, poor Travis. He is the Miles O'Brien of Enterprise. We've said that. But
Yep.
he's
Yep.
amazing. He can pilot. He knows what they need to think about and what they need to do in the catwalk when they figure out, oh my goodness, we've got this many hours to figure all
Hmm.
this out. He's the one who gives them a bathroom, right?
Yep.
He knows so many different things about the space they're in and interacting with the other aliens. Man can shoot. I think about the rescue in Canamar.
Yeah.
Like, he comes in the seventh. Like, they take
Hmm.
him because he's a good pilot, but also because he's just a well-rounded, good to have on your side guy. And I really like Travis. I thought about picking, Horizon
Me
when
too.
he's with his family because that really was his episode, but there are so many moments of Travis that are so little sprinkled throughout. And I just think about that first scene in the catwalk when it's him and Trip and they're going through the list. And I'm like, man, without Travis, they would have been screwed so many times. So
Exactly.
good for you, Travis, for being exactly who they needed so many times throughout this season.
Mm. I'm just gonna go into mine.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm sorry, Travis. Forgive me. He's reliably in the background. Hashtag
Oh.
dialogue free hero.
Oh.
There's so many times we've called out a heck yeah, Travis moment. He's doing something heroic, but there's no dialogue involved.
Yeah.
He's either
And no
flying,
recognition of for him.
yeah, he's doing an L maneuver or whatever, an L4
Yeah.
maneuver, or like in the episode I'm picking, the seventh, he comes in guns a blazing. And
Yeah.
I remember viscerally that moment going, heck yeah. Oh no,
Yeah.
no, that was Canamar. I chose the seventh when he
Yeah.
body slams the guy. He's like the bouncer
Yes.
in that
Yes.
bar. And it was just like
Mm-hmm.
the first like heck yeah moment I had for Travis. And he's just in the background there, and then he pops up out of nowhere like Worf saying
Yes.
beheadings are on Wednesday, and he slams down the changeling, right?
Yes. Yes.
It was that moment, and I think that's who this character is functioning as in the series. I've come to accept it. Let's celebrate that. He's reliably in the background, just like
Yeah.
Malcolm is reliably always going to do a good job and do it all. Travis is the same way. He's just dialogue free, right? So that's my pick for Travis, the seventh.
It's so funny because we both had the same ideas there
Yeah,
that
yeah.
poor Travis, like, but you're right. He pops up exactly where you need him to be. And
Hmm.
think about it. This is such a kind, sweet, open, generous, warm person who can totally body slam you when need be and can definitely rescue you from a prison ship. Like,
Well,
yeah,
and more than that, like in the seventh, he notices the condensation. He's the
yep.
one unlocking the clues to
Hmm.
to the problems here. So he doesn't have a lot of lines, but he's integral to a lot of resolutions in this season. So reliably in the background, dialogue-free hero.
Oh, Travis.
Someone that is reliably delightful and interesting to watch on screen is our beloved Dr. Phlox.
Yay.
So let me dive into my 5 words and hashtag. Here we go. From delight to dead serious. Hashtag if you're willing. And the episode I'm choosing is The Breach.
Mm,
But we've talked about it all season two, that Phlox, he's jovial and delightful. And then in a moment, you
yep.
can go to that dead serious where it's just like cutting you to the core. And that's some range. So if Trip is range and change, this guy's just range. And I love every moment we get to watch Phlox on screen except in the bounty or in bounty.
Yeah.
But um yeah, in the breach, you see more of that serious for sure. And I think it's such a critical episode. I chose it twice so far
Yeah.
in my list. Like I could choose it more, but it really has a lot about that Flock's character. So does Stigma, but
Hmm.
that's more the delightful, silly side. This has a lot of range about his background, the backgrounds on the Denobulians. I mean, our conversation went deep into what are Denobulans like, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and and then it got really serious about issues that we're still dealing with our in our culture, and his serious resolve to try and be better for his children, and if they're willing to embrace the other side, the Antorans, he is too. So I just like what he stands for. He's very Star Trek in that
Yeah.
episode, very much. So had to choose the breach.
Well, I'm really glad you did because I'm going to segue into mine here because I had not decided until just now which one I was going to pick. And since you picked the
Oh.
breach, I can take that one off and pick my other one. This was the other character that I had a really hard time distilling down to this season.
Mm,
And maybe it's because I really like T'Pol and Phlox so much. Like
yeah.
they could be my favorite two of the series, and I like the two of them together so much. Like
Yes, you
it
do.
was hard. Yeah, it was hard for me to put this into a small condensed version, but here's what I came up with. My 5 words are layered character and performance shine, hashtag never enough. And my
Yeah.
episode is going to be stigma because I
Mm,
was
hmm.
thinking about all the layers of Phlox, and we were talking about, we saw a lot of layers of Trip. Well, Phlox too. And the reason that I was going back and forth between Stigma and the Breach was because in Stigma, we do see all that stuff with Fiesel, but we
Yeah.
also see him being a doctor and being a
Yes.
doctor with other doctors, being the doctor to his patient, to Paul, standing up to Archer and saying, I'm not talking about things and I'm not doing this or not doing that. And like, he is so multi-layered, and we've talked about, and you've pointed out
Mm-hmm.
how he can change on a dime when he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
So the performances of Flax in this one, even in episodes where he doesn't have a ton to do, they're always highlighted. They're always moments where we are going, oh, this was wonderful and this was great. And how
Hmm.
many other people have we talked about, oh yeah, when he's with Flax it's great, and when
Yes.
they're with Flax it's great, and when she's with Flax it's great. Like, he is always elevating whatever scene he's in. And that's why I said never enough, because one of the things that I really enjoyed about this season is thinking about how, if it hadn't been Trip as the third main character, if it had been Flax, if
Mm-hmm.
they had
Mm-hmm.
gone with the Doctor, First Officer, Captain trio again, how different things could have been and how much I would have liked that too. Not to take anything away from Trip, because I love him and his arc and all that we're going into, but when you see some of these moments between, Flax and T'Pol, Flax and Archer, Flax and Hoshi, even Flax and Malcolm when he's inflicting as much pain as he wants on his healing leg,
Yes.
these are wonderful moments. And he is a different kind of doctor than we see in any other show. And I really appreciate that and always want more. And I want more Denobulans. Like, there's another short trek I want. I want Star Trek Denobula. And let's just go
Yeah.
there. Let's see it. Let's explore it. Let's go into those crazy crowded houses. Let's look at the family trees that look like yarn balls, and let's do it, because Phlox is amazing and John Billingsley is amazing. And again, we're going into seasons where he doesn't get as much feature. So I really appreciate every bit
Mm-hmm.
that we got this season.
Mm. I'm speechless. I have nothing left to say because you hit it all. I mean,
Aw.
he's so multidimensional. And I think maybe I chose the breach because of his fatherly nature. Like whenever we get to think of
Yes.
him as a father and a husband,
Mm-hmm.
I almost
Mm-hmm.
went with a night in sick bay for him. But I loved all of his conversations with Archer, except for the sexual tension part, but like him
Yeah.
about his family and his
Yeah.
all of his degrees. Like there's a lot going on with that character. So it's hard to encapsulate him in 5 words and a hashtag, but I think between the both of us, we've hit a good amount of his features there.
Well, and Phlox is a perfect one to end our big seven characters talk because he's so positive and so delightful. So, what a good way to wrap up that first part. But lucky for us, we get to go into a couple secondary characters this season.
Yeah.
So, we have three that we picked that showed up every now and then to cause some chaos and some joy, and we also picked a one-off character that we wanted to feature. So I'm excited to hear how this one goes. And I have to say, there is one hashtag in here that I'm pretty sure we have the same thing, but we'll have to see when we get there. So the first secondary character that we're going to start with is our favorite blue-skinned antenna and Andorian Shran.
Yeah.
So, okay, before I go into my 5 words, forgive me for this brief tangent. And for all of you Carrot Crew out there who are listening, this comes with the recommendation for this game. But have you ever played the game Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza?
Oh my gosh, I just did that New Year's Day.
It's an amazingly fun game, super easy, lots of fun. Your face hurts from laughing by the time you're done, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
we play that game at our house all the time. Super cheap cards, easy to travel, great game. Highly recommended everyone out there. And there's a Christmas version, there's an Easter version, there's a bunch of them, right?
Well, we need a Trek version.
Wouldn't that be fun? It would be really fun.
Romulan, Vulcan, Ferengi, Borg.
And Klingon.
And Klingon, yeah.
Oh, okay. Ooh, but the Klingon could be one of the
Yeah,
fancy
yeah.
moves. Anyways,
Yeah, you
okay.
do a headbutt.
Tangent over. Yes, yes. So, all right, we're gonna market this later. This is our $1 million idea.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, the point of this game is in there you say taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza with a rhythm. And when I was doing my 5 words for Shran, all I could think of was that same rhythm. So my words go along with it, and it's friend, foe, progressive, diplomat, drink. So those are my 5 words, and my hashtag is fighting for peace, and my episode is ceasefire. So Shran is so many things, and as we know, he's going to become even more. And talking about multi-layered characters, this is a member of the Andorian Imperial Guard who
Yes.
is trying for peace. He is trying for peace with the Vulcans, with Saval in particular, who we'll get to in a minute, but he's a pretty Vulcan. Like he softens as we go, but man, how amazing that this military man is fighting so hard for peace. He's bringing in Archer, who he also sees as a bridge, like we've been talking about, to try for this peace. He is always trying for something better. Sometimes he's our friend, sometimes he's our foe, but in the end, he is really working for this. He's committing to the diplomacy, he's committing to peace and for moving forward, and he's going to bring the blue drinks. So
Yeah.
that had to be what I featured in here. And I do really kind of want to do friend. Oh, no, I can't even say it. Friend, foe, progressive, diplomat, drink. It just flowed.
Yeah, I love that. And he's multi-layered too, so that's why you had to
Yeah,
have a
he is.
list of words instead of just like a statement.
Absolutely. And he wasn't even in that many episodes this season. But
No.
hey, it's he's so important and he's such a presence. And when he comes, those seeds of the Federation all sprout just a little bit more.
Yes.
They all grow just a little bit more. It's you can see those stones being laid down on the path, and a lot of it is Shran. This wouldn't have happened if he hadn't pushed the way he did and pushed for Archer to be a part of it. So I love Shran. I love Jeffrey Combs. Bring it on. I can't wait for more of him in season 3.
Absolutely. Okay, well, my Shran 5 words is open to crossing the bridge. Hashtag
Nice.
mutual dissatisfaction.
That was
And
almost mine too.
right, ceasefire, of course, is the
Yep.
episode. You have to choose for Shran in this one. But I really wanted to connect back to my Archer 5 words, where he's the bridge and Shran's open to crossing that bridge. So that's it. I mean, I can't add much to what you said, but his stubborn willingness, his
Yep.
determination to be successful at peace,
Yes. Yes.
his violent,
He's
stubborn determination
Hmm.
is what makes the Federation possible.
He's gonna fight for peace as hard as he
Yeah.
fights for Andoria. Like
Yes.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He's so stubborn. And
Yeah, in
yeah,
the best way.
exactly. So yeah, love Shran. We cannot have Enterprise without Shran. He's an iconic character in Star Trek and one of the defining characters, I think, for this series.
I agree.
Just putting
I
that out there.
completely agree. Completely
And
agree.
Jeffrey Combs. So
Always Jeffrey Combs. Like he's the answer. Like who should we cast in this? Jeffrey Combs. Like it doesn't really matter what the role is. He can do it. He's good.
Agamas.
Yes.
All right. Shall I go into Saval now?
Yes, let's.
All right. So here we go. And I forgot I did not have a hashtag ready for him. So I'm going to make it up in the moment. Ready?
Yeah, I am.
His caution sounds like condescension. Hashtag underwear. The Vulcan underwear. Yeah. I mean, thanks,
Oh, you're
Thad.
gonna laugh so hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Is it hashtag balls?
It's hashtag free balling question mark.
Okay. All right. That's because of Thad. So, but my my episode pick is The Expanse. Although it's not, there's many opportunities for me to call out Saval being condescending. But particularly in The Expanse, I think you called out in our episode on The Expanse that Saval's like not wrong and he's being just cautious and laying out the
Yeah.
facts that he has
Yeah.
about The Expanse. But it doesn't matter the content of his message. He's condescending in the way he delivers
Yeah.
it. Um,
Exactly.
so I feel like that is this character. Like he cares. He actually does care about humanity, and we see that
Hmm.
truer later on in the series,
Hmm.
but he's so condescending. Um, so that's my 5 words for him, and that's my pick, The Expanse. What about you?
It's beautiful. Well, we already know my hashtag here, and thank you, Thad. Go listen to his podcast, Infinite Diversity. It's amazing, and there's just as
Yes,
many laughs over there.
more.
So maybe more. Yes. All right. So my 5 words for Saval are hindrance, ally, diplomat, or all. And because
Mm,
he has
yeah,
all those
yeah,
layers, and that comes with that, that just like you were saying, he's not really wrong with what he's saying. It just comes off so cringy sometimes. You're just like, oh,
yes.
that guy, because he seems like a hindrance, but really he's being cautious,
Hmm.
and he's definitely an ally, kind of. I mean, he's an ally, but he definitely has some layers of superiority in there. He's absolutely the diplomat, and I like how we see him gently softening here, because the
Hmm.
episode I picked was Ceasefire, because I love that
Hmm.
moment at the end,
Hmm.
and especially
Oh,
coming right after
yes.
Shran, where he drinks. He will
Yes.
drink with Shran and Archer. Like
Yes.
that is enormous. It's one thing for T'Pol to do it, and that in itself is enormous, but for Soval
Yes.
to do that means and says something, and he is all of those things to all of the people, to the humans, to the Andorians. He's the one that Shran calls out for a reason, because he is the most Vulcan,
Mhm.
but he also is more open-minded, and we see that slowly coming out. Like he's not going to change as quickly as T'Pol, and that's fine. That wouldn't be what we expect, but you're seeing these moments where he's gently opening up, which is why I think perhaps hashtag freeballing, we see that those socks go up. Perhaps he's loosening up all over.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I will have to dig out for anyone who's confused with this. If you go back to when we were doing all our social medias about Ceasefire, there is a moment where he walks into the ready room, and for one brief frame, you can see that he has bare legs and like calf length socks underneath his Vulcan robe. And it just set off a huge discussion that you can hear more about, the discussion about Vulcan underwear in particular, in our last mailbag show. But it has, I will never watch that scene without looking for Gary Graham's leg.
Yeah. Yeah. Me neither. Like I can see the picture, the screenshot right now that you took and the circle or the arrow or
Uh-huh.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
arrow. Oh.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you watch episodes a lot of times in a row. You notice silly little things, but I hope that makes you guys laugh as much as we did. And thank you again, Thad, for continuing to give us running jokes in our podcast.
Absolutely.
So we couldn't leave our secondary characters without somebody who I always want more of again, and that's Admiral Forrest.
Yes.
So we have to talk about our Admiral here because we were even mentioning this season about how he's not in that many episodes, but he feels like he's in a lot more. Partly
Hmm.
because they refer to him all the time, but also because he's such a presence. So here's my 5 words for Admiral Forrest: consistent support, Earth touchpoint, handshake, and hashtag
Ah.
opposite of bad Merle. And
Hmm.
my episode was First Flight. I
Yeah.
love that we got to see him when he was Commodore. I love that he is the one back on Earth and we're hearing about Earth. We're hearing about what the Federation is saying. We're hearing what the Vulcans are saying to them through him. I love that we have that touch point back on Earth, which we see multiple times throughout the season. And even though I gave some flack to Regeneration, where he shows up in an awesome coat at the Arctic Research Facility for no good reason, at least he was there. Like, I love
Yeah.
every time Forrest is on the screen. He is so pure and good and fighting for everything in a totally different way than the Enterprise crew is. He's doing it in, the paperwork, in the bureaucrat, in that type of way, but he's also, I said handshake because how many times do we see him throughout this being that connector to somebody else? And the handshake that
Hmm.
he gives Archer before they head off into the expanse, they don't need all the words.
Hmm.
We've seen this relationship since the very first episode. We saw it even more in First Flight. And we talk about how they are both in rank together, but they're friends. And that moment was a moment where it was a friend to friend. And I love that he is that for our crew. I love in First Flight when he's dressing them down, but he secretly loves what they did. Like,
Yes.
I am sad Forrest is not in season 3 because he really does make everything better and he feels kind of grounding. Like it's better
Yes.
when he's around. So I love Forrest. What about you?
I do too. And so my 5 words, protocol does not supersede people.
Ooh.
Hashtag smirk.
Yes.
It's the smirk when he's dressing down Archer and AG, that scene that you called out. And, he's gonna, kind of play along with protocol, but people first. Especially when Archer calls up, what are we doing? My father made this engine for us to explore. Like Archer knows
Mm-hmm.
he can appeal to Forrest's sense of like personal loyalty to this person. And because Forrest is a people person, imagine all of the incredibly boring and frustrating meetings he has to sit in with
Oh
the
my God,
Vulcans.
his email.
With Vulcans, yes. Like
Yeah.
the number of hours he's logged with Vulcans in a room is probably astronomical. The guy is a saint and very patient, right? That's a
Yes.
whole other side to Forrest I hadn't thought about until this season. So he's about the people. Again, he's another bridge, but in a different way than Archer.
Mm-hmm.
But protocol is
Mm-hmm.
one thing, that whole first flight thing, but he's going to go with the people in the end.
That was very well put. Beautiful.
And now we've chosen first flight 3 times in
Well,
this.
there's a reason
Yeah.
that we are called the First Flight Podcast because while that might not be the highest ranked episode for us in the season, there's so much in there
Yeah.
that has ripple effects to everything else.
Hmm.
And it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. All right. We need to wrap up our kind of our secondary characters with Silic. So I will go first. Gotta clear my throat for this one. Get my good teeth
This
in.
is the one I think we have the same hashtag.
Well, then join me when I get to the hashtag. Antagonist who can be reasonable. Hashtag
John.
John.
I love it. I love it.
And my pick is Shockwave Part
Oh.
2. Because
Mhm.
when he boards Enterprise and he's like having a conversation with DePaula, she's just throwing that BS of the science director has determined that time travel is not possible. He's just not annoyed with it. And then he believes her that they don't actually know where Archer is, that they're not lying, that they
Mhm.
didn't falsify their logs. Like he's reasonable. He didn't just slaughter everyone. He's not there to be a bad guy. He's there to get Archer. Like he always has a specific mission, just like in The Expanse.
Mhm.
He's not there to be a bad guy. He's just serving
Exactly.
a master. And I really wanted trying to figure out a way to get something about his sect of the Stillobon being desperate to be more than what they are with all the mutations and stuff.
Mm.
I couldn't fit that
Mhm.
in a hashtag, but I think that's an interesting part of this little bond that wasn't explored enough. But yeah, I think in this season, especially with The Expanse, we get to the point that he's not really a villain. That's why I called him antagonist. He's definitely an antagonist to our
Yeah.
crew. But is he villainous in the same way that we think Ducat, right? And the
Yeah.
Borg Queen, like those are some villains. He's an antagonist. So that's my Silic. What is your Silic?
Well, we're kind of on the same vibe here, and even to your little throwaway comment here, because my 5 words are new teeth, future guy's minion. So, and of course, the hashtag was exactly the same as yours because there's nobody who says
John.
John better than Silic. Exactly. And I have done plenty of bad Silic impressions because it is so him. But I think that is important here that he is Future Guy's minion. He's not the big bad. And that is something
Mm-hmm.
you see throughout this season. And again, we were talking about how we have the beginning and the end of this season when you have Shockwave Part 2, which was the episode I picked as well, all the way to The Expanse. And both times he's coming on, he's
Mm-hmm.
causing chaos, they're on the ship. And I still really
And
like it
on the
when the
ceiling.
Silverman crawl on the ceiling. Yes, I like it. I like it when they crawl on the ceiling. I think it's cool. But he is always in service to someone else. And you see that desperation you were talking about when he's telling future guy, what do I do, what do you want me to say, how can I help you, I can't hear you, and it turns out to be Archer who then kicks him in the chest. But he
Mm-hmm.
wants so much to do what's best for what he thinks is right for his people and what's right for his faction. And if we were on another side, we would see that from his point of view very differently. And he is such an interesting antagonist. And when you see him by the end of the season in The Expanse and you see all the unspoken
Yes.
between him and Archer, there's so much there. And he sees a lot of these interconnections too. And everybody is recognizing that there's a lot more going on here than what they're talking about. And it's just beautiful. And I really like Silic, and I wish we had gotten so much more of him because just him saying John makes me happy. But then when he comes in and actually has a part to play, what an amazing character. And always, again, another character that every time they're on, it heightens the scene. It makes the episode better.
Oh, that's a great point. It heightens the scene, especially like you called out in The Expanse with all those unspoken looks between him and Archer. Yep.
Oh yeah, it it makes the scene, like we do a lot of listening to Trek. I mean, both of us, it's on in the background, it's here, it's there.
Hmm.
That scene you watch because you don't understand it the same way if you don't watch that moment. And that's all him. That's Silic right there.
Absolutely.
All right. So we had to pick some one-off characters as well to feature tonight because there were some absolute standouts here. So I picked one that I did the full 5 words and hashtag treatment to, but I also have three secondary system characters here. So I'll give my first one, and then Chris, I think you did the full treatment for all your people, right?
I did.
Nice. So we'll go do yours, and then if you haven't covered the ones that I picked, we'll come back and do my secondary systems. So I really thought about this one because, like I said, there were four that immediately jumped out to me, but I ended up having to go with Kolos, the Klingon lawyer from Judgment,
Yeah.
and my five words are mic drop speech for Archer, hashtag Rurapenthe, and of course it's Judgment because that
Yes.
episode is
Yes.
glorious. I mean, we spent a long time talking about why that character and that episode and that moment is amazing, but just the fact that it gives us a totally different look into Klingon culture than we get from any other episode of any other Trek anywhere. I love this episode and I love Kolos and I love how his honor shines through this
Yes.
entire episode. And as they leave him on Rurapenthe, he he is truly showing what that honor means to him. And that is so beautiful. I had to pick him.
It's life or death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go into mine because he was one of mine too. So for Kolos,
Yay.
Klingons are more than warriors. Hashtag in every revolution. And my episode is Judgment, of course.
Of
Yeah,
course. Well,
what a-
these ones don't really need episodes. They're only in one. So,
that's true. They're one of for a reason. But I'm keeping the stats, so gonna record that. But yeah, I mean, the voice, the costume,
Yeah.
the
Oh, the
peek,
costumes.
just the peek into Klingon
Yeah.
society that we don't get much look into. Is just beautiful, wonderful. We need more of that. And we spent a long time talking about that. But Kolos really opens the door on what a Klingon could be and what honor looks like. It looks like integrity for him, right? He's sticking
Mm-hmm.
with the legal system that he knew before it's become corrupt. And he's gonna do his time so he can come out and try and change that from within. So I love everything about Kolos. Endlessly watchable.
Endlessly watchable is the perfect words for that one. So good job, JG Hertzler, for bringing another amazing Klingon.
Yeah. Two awesome Klingons.
Yeah. All right. So I want to hear your other people, and then we'll go into my secondary systems for one-off characters.
All right. Well, my next one will just stick with Judgment. It's Duras.
Flipping Duras.
Flipping Duras. All right, my five words.
He's one of mine too.
I knew it had to be. 5 words. Small man desperate for stature.
Yes.
Hashtag flipping
Flipping
Duras.
Duras.
Duras. I love that you made that up. That's my favorite thing.
It legitimately came out of the fact that every time I watched that episode, I was muttering that under my breath. Flipping Duras, he's just always back.
Duras.
Yeah,
And
that's
as
my favorite hashtag of the season by far.
It's one of my favorite editing of the season. When, if you haven't listened to The Expanse, I don't know why you wouldn't have. That came before this episode. But as I was hearing us keep saying flipping Duras over and over again, I heard Gowron going Duras.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, I have to put him in. He just has to be in there. So yeah, now it's on Abby's phone.
It is. First of all, a million billion props to you for that editing choice, because when I heard it, I snorted water out my nose. I laughed so hard, and if you haven't listened to the last 3 seconds of that episode, don't skip it, because it is perfection. But yeah, now Gowron saying Duras is now one of my my alert tones, my alarm tones on my phone. So every once in a while, it's time to clean up and do this. It goes Duras. It's perfect. It's perfect. It makes me laugh every single time. So
Abby,
thank you for bringing joy.
When I'm editing, I'm like, all right, will this make Abby laugh, or will she like this song choice? So you're my audience. And if it works for everyone else, cool. And hopefully it is. Seems like it is. But yeah, that Duras.
Perfection.
love Gowron too. Just that performance. No one can speak like him.
Nope. Robert O'Reilly is a gem. So, all right. So, Flippin' Duras had to be mentioned here because he's
Duras.
not going to be mentioned again.
Yeah,
So, sorry, Duras.
not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Exactly.
So I had one more one-off
Okay.
character. He was actually the first one-off character I thought of. Hessick from Marauders.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
So my
Yeah.
5 words, leadership is leading despite fear. Hashtag will be ready.
Yeah. Oh, that line.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That line.
that took a while for me to find the right hashtag, but that's where that punch, where he's grown
Mm-hmm.
a spine, he's gonna protect his people, and it connects back to like Archer's story about him being very afraid in the pilot,
Yeah.
but still leading through it. And that's what he taught. He passed that lesson on to Tessic. We talked about how that's a great moment for Archer, but it's a great moment for this man Tessic,
Yeah.
who knows what he's doing now, but he's definitely a stronger leader for his community.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because we talked about how, Archer's talking to Tessic and putting those lessons in. And I think when they're talking, even in the expanse about with
Hmm.
Trip and
Hmm.
Archer, he's talking about how suddenly he's not just commanding the ship, he's taking on the
Yes.
lives of these people. And that's what he and Tessic are talking about, that
Yes.
burden of command. And to see Archer have someone to talk to like a peer, but also sort of like a mentor. Oh, that's beautiful. And Tessic, the fact that he made me forget that he sang me the probability song when I
Hmm.
was 10 is a tribute to that actor. And I love that episode. That episode
Me too.
has really risen in the ranks for me
Hmm.
after doing
Hmm.
this podcast. And I love that you called him out because he's easily forgotten, but an
Yes.
absolute gorgeous piece of this season that Archer keeps going back to. So, really good pick.
Thank you. Yeah, he was the first one. And I'm so glad in our notes that you made it characters plural so I can choose three.
Well, that's good. I've got a few in my secondary systems too. So,
Let's do it. I want to hear them.
yeah, a couple that you didn't mention. First, I had to call out Zokan, who was
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
from Dawn, his Trip's sparring partner. That relationship, and again, that final scene in sickbay where they can talk to each other finally. That that character, those two sold that episode. That episode could have fallen flat if either one of them had given less than 100%. But he's so alien, and he's
Mm-hmm.
the movements, the body language, the voice, all of it, the makeup, the costume, but at the same time, that connection. And to see Trip, he won't leave him. By the end, they are that bonded. And that just is such a moment. And for him to say without saying at the end, he goes, when, I fired on your ship, I'm glad I didn't destroy it. That was so big and meant so much. And that's such a beautiful character moment there. I had to call him out. And, he's got a soda fountain of different kinds of spit. So that's also super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Great actor beneath all that prosthetic.
absolutely.
Just jeez. Yeah. I struggled with that, almost making that my trip pick because that was a very stronger than I had remembered that episode.
Hmm. I agree. All right. And on my list as well, I also had AG from First Flight. And while,
Hmm.
I found him kind of annoying throughout the episode, you're kind of supposed to find him
Yeah.
annoying throughout the episode. And it was such a good look, a good foil for Archer. They ended up scaffolding each other to be so much better, and I really liked seeing that part, and for that character to have come in and for you in one episode to believe that he had enough of a relationship long term with Archer and this program that Archer would be that gutted at the end is
Hmm.
really speaks to the performance and the charisma between the two actors. So I really liked that. And a special little asterisk shout out to Feasel Flux here, who may not have been
Yes.
my very favorite character one off, but okay, first of all, female Denobulan, absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
Second of all, she's married to Phlox, so she's already that much
Hmm.
cooler. She has
Mhm.
gorgeous costumes. She's absolutely brilliant. And, I believe her the whole time.
Yes. Yes.
And that's important because sometimes like we can point out some of the times this season where we saw one-off actors that you didn't believe as much or that weren't as natural. And while she had a very uncomfortable subplot, she played it really well. And her voice too, like butter, just melts. So I wanted to make sure that we had her in there. And you know what? I was noticing as I went through all these secondary characters and support characters, she's the only woman. So I had to make sure that
Mm.
called out somebody female in our secondary systems here because there weren't a lot of them as supporting characters this season that really jumped out. So,
Well, I have some secondary systems too.
all right, go for it.
One of them is a woman, no hashtags or anything, but Travis's mom was a
Oh
good one,
yeah.
right?
Yes, yes, that's true.
But the whole episode is kind of forgettable in a way. Like, it just doesn't stand out. So it didn't come to mind first, but I did consider her for sure. And then the next one is Manos from the seventh.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was an interesting bad guy that they didn't do enough with, but the actor was really good,
Yes, he was.
really compelling. It just not, he wasn't given enough. So that's why I didn't make it on my, real list, but that's a shout out I'll make for sure.
Absolutely. And I have to say, when you look at this list, there's a lot of good stuff in this season.
Yeah.
Like these
Yeah.
characters, the fact that we just went through a whole list of one off characters and
Hmm.
secondary supporting characters, that's amazing. And there's a lot of ensemble Trek shows, and Enterprise is not always the best, but there's always good stuff to find in there for every character. And all their one offs, I will put them against anybody else's from any other series because there are some incredibly good characters in this series and in this season.
Exactly. So here's a stat real quick.
Yes.
We, out of 26 episodes, we have 15 episodes being a pick, right?
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
it
then
is.
I've notated when we've mentioned an episode that we didn't pick, but we mentioned it in some small way, but there was some meat to our mention. It wasn't just we named the episode.
Right.
So, we dropped the name of, or we talked about Carbon Creek a little bit, Night and
Mm-hmm.
Sick Bay a little bit, the Communicator,
Mm-hmm.
Singularity, Precious Cargo, Canamar, Horizon just now, and Regeneration with our, the jacket,
Oh yeah.
right?
Man, jackets this season were a good feature because
Yeah,
talking back to
yeah.
the seventh,
Yes.
yes,
Oh,
I'm all
lots of
about the
jackets.
jackets in Enterprise this season.
But there's only 3 episodes we didn't even mention, or we said their name maybe, but we didn't do anything with it. So those are Future Tense, The Crossing, and Bounty. But that's pretty good for
Yeah.
a whole season. We covered a lot of bases. Hopefully, we hit some of your favorites out there. Yeah, that was good.
And not to do any spoilers and need another read alert here, but I'm pretty sure a couple of those episodes that we didn't touch on tonight will
Mm.
be coming up in part two. So
Hmm.
if we didn't get your favorite or did talk about something important to you, please know there is a whole second part to this wonderful Bonanza wrap up retrospective coming in just a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy. Neither of us picked Future Tense for anything on this
And I
one.
adore that episode.
I know, me too. We both do. Yeah.
Always wanted to meet a Stegosaurus.
I heard the Stegosaurus is a herbivore.
Well, if I could go back. No, we're not doing this entire scene, but we could. We could.
Yes, we could.
So,
My chronometer's running backwards, sir.
Incoming transmission.
You read my letter?
We want to remind you that we adore getting feedback and thoughts from listeners, as we hope you could tell from our last mailbag episode. We had so much fun sharing and discussing your insights and ideas. We have had lots of chats on social media, Freeball and Vulcans, with so many of you, Thad, and we're collecting again for the next mailbag episode. So this is your call for any Grappler ratings, Porthos picks, view screen on picks, or general comments. please get them to us using the hashtag Carrot Crew. So you can just be part of our conversation in the next mailbag episode.
Yes, please do reach out to us and share thoughts, smiles, any of that stuff. Our next mailbag episode is coming up pretty soon, and we'll take general thoughts about season 2 as well, since that's what we're talking about here. And anywhere you put those things, use that hashtag Carrot Crew. Like I said, I've seen it in the wild recently in places I didn't expect it, and oh, that just fills my heart with joy. And I love that the Carrot Crew is out there in the world. It makes me unbelievably happy.
It's a good crew.
It is a good crew, and thank you for sticking with us through this season. It has been absolutely a blast to get to do this. So if you want to reach out to us, we are at First Flight Pod on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. We're also on YouTube under the Tricorder Transmissions Network. And if you would like your voice on the pod, as you might have heard we did a little bit back in Regeneration, you can also email us audio files of 90 seconds or less at firstflightpod@gmail.com. If you want to reach me personally, I am at Abby M. Summer. That's SOMMER on Twitter and Blue Sky, and those are the best places to find me. So, Chris, where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Shelf Nerds or on my YouTube channel, Completing the Shelf, where I talk a lot about Star Trek.
Thank you so much for joining us. It is always so much fun and worth every second talking Trek with you, Chris, and to you, Carrot Crew out there. Thank you for spending this time with us. And as we said before, we'll be back next time with our second season 2 wrap-up Bonanza episode, the themes, data, and Golden Carrot Ball Awards. And as always, we leave you with this quote from Captain Jonathan Archer and your moment of Melanie.
The most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that bind us, all of us, to each other.
Yes. Okay. Crazy idea. Ready?
Okay.
All right. I think next season we need to have a small little tiny segment where we issue our Flippin' Duras award for the episode. Now, not every episode might have a Flippin' Duras, but it's a character we want to punch in the face.
Oh my God.
So if it comes up, we have that soundbite ready to go, right? And the soundbite,
Yes.
of course, is you saying flipping. It's the end of that episode plus
Yeah.
O'Reilly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we got to keep it alive.
Oh, yes. I mean, that really has brought me a stupidly huge amount of joy.
Too.
Like,
Me too.
it's so funny. And it's going to be funny every time.
I can see myself now, like my kid's doing something annoying me, we just want to go flipping Duras.
Flippin' Duras. Yes. Yes. It's going to become a part of my normal conversation.
So if we have a segment, like, it's just like, hey, do you have one this episode? Yeah, I do. Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like that.
Is
I
that
like
okay?
that. Yes.
And then we can track
It can be.
how many
Who gets the
Duras
Flippin' Duras awards.
Yeah, how many flippin' Durases did we get?
That's
this
funny.
season?
It can go in with the cons, like
Yeah,
right after the cons.
Yes. Okay, I like it. And that'll end us on
And-
kind of a funnier note too on the con.
Exactly. Oh, that's perfect.
Cool.
I like that.
Duras.
I cannot believe that Future Tense did not come up tonight, but I think it's
I
because
know.
it's such an ensemble episode.
Yes. Yeah.
And there wasn't like any character really stood out in that one.
Yes.
Because I rewatched that one and I realized how much, again, there are some episodes this season I love so much, and then some that I'm just like, yeah, I don't have to watch that one again for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably guess which ones I went through and didn't rewatch, because I rewatched most of the season and I listened to all of us again.
But for me, I have a very much elevated view of the entire season than ever before. This is a very strong season.
It is.
Especially for building that federation. Like,
Yes,
That's like one of the primary themes. It's just kind of
absolutely.
subtle.
Hmm. Well, and it's one of those things that you know that season 4 took a different direction.
We're just recording the next episode right now.
Oh God, yeah, we are, huh?
I mean, honestly, T'Pol basically gives Saval the Flippin' Duras Award at
Duras.
Yeah,
Shockwaves
she
Part 2,
does.
right?
Yeah, she does. I'm really going to enjoy this in season 3 because there's a bunch of
Yeah.
people
Oh,
just like, are you
yes.
serious?
Yeah. Like every reptilian.
Yeah, but you know what? By the end, they're good villains. But yes, you like, oh my God, go away. I'm not sad you get blown up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was intense. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
season 3 is going to be interesting.
Okay. What are you watching? I know you're not doing it. I mean, you're just bouncing around. So what are you doing?
I watched Prodigy through completely twice. Once in the
Okay.
month of December and once in January to get. I don't know if they're counting month from when it drops or calendar month, so I wanted to make sure my numbers were
Mm-hmm.
recorded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Slowly doing that, and I did a really interesting like TNG duology the other night. I was just like,
Ooh.
what do I want to watch? I'm not sure. And today, as of recording, we're Green Shirt dropped their episode on Timescape, and I was like, I love that episode.
Ah,
Let's watch that. And then we were done, and I was like, I want another episode that's kind of about the Enterprise, like the ship. And so I
yes.
watched Emergence
I knew you were
afterwards,
gonna say
which I
that.
hadn't
Yeah.
watched in a long time, and it was a really interesting watch back to back. And you know what was really cool is I realized it was 2 episodes that have Troy as a major part of the episode doing things that are kind of important and figuring stuff out. And she's in a uniform. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's really refreshing. Like, Marina Sirtis is absolutely stunning. Any age, any outfit, anywhere, anytime, any makeup, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Mm-hmm.
her in a uniform just feels good at that point in the series, and it was neat. I didn't do that intentionally at all, but that was a really fun duology that I liked there.
Yeah, I like that. And Troy in the
Yeah,
uniform. I mean, it's one of the reasons I'll watch Eye of the Beholder, right? Because
I
she's good
like
in
that
that.
one more
I
than
do
most
too. Me
people.
too. Me
I
too.
really do.
And I love being in the nacelle.
Yes, it's so cool, and I like the mystery. There's an episode that's got like a vibe to it. That whole
Yeah, it
episode is
does.
tense and disconcerting.
I can see that guy's face in my mind right now. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
With the big sharp nose. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I did a cool duology, and it was The Price and False Prophets.
Oh,
Right?
that's fun too.
They're not ones that I watch much, but I enjoyed watching them back to back. That was kind of cool. And I really enjoyed Ferengi on Voyager. It was kind of just like, yeah.
And it's a different kind of tone than you get from Ferengi on other shows.
But it was
Because
t
you
it
know it's
wasn't.
gonna
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, because you knew it was gonna be a one-off. Like they
Yeah.
could really do whatever for this one because they weren't sticking around.
But it was the DS9 version of Ferengi, right?
Yes.
So like
Yes.
now that I'm deeper, like I know DS9 a lot more, you see all that connective tissue between the series, even though these are characters that came from TNG Ferengi, right?
Right.
It was really well done. Like, it's not my favorite episode, but it was really well done. Like taking everything we know about DS9 Ferengi and then adding to that. I loved when one of the characters was like, I have the rules of acquisition with all the commentary and like we would do with the Bible or the Constitution or
Yeah.
something, you know. That
Yep.
was really cool.
Yep.
So yeah, that was my
That
random.
is
I
fun.
finished Discovery season 1. Very strong.
I have been absolutely itching to get back into my Discovery rewatch, but I'm like, I have got to finish this season of First Flight. before I get, because all I'm going to want to watch then is Discovery. And
Yeah.
I've been going back and hitting some of the episodes that I really wanted to like
Yes.
refresh or double check, or the ones that I'm thinking about changing my grappler. So I've been doing a lot of those, and I'm like, oh. And then I just heard from Chrissy and Thad that they're dropping their episode 4 season 1, like the look back, next Tuesday, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to watch a whole season before next Tuesday.
I wanted to do that one. I just didn't work out. But yeah, this was the strongest I reacted positively to that season. So good. My only decon is probably just the way they don't set up Burnham's last speech. Like, it's a great speech. It's a fantastic speech. And it seems it's still cringy to me, because why is she giving this speech here? You know, like, I could have just used like, and now Commander Burnham receives the award for blank. Commander,
do you have any context?
Do you have any comments? Right? And then, then go. Like, it just, and it was so smart the way, like, the narration, the beginning of the episode is that speech, and so well structured. It just seemed cringy, a little too, I don't know, corny. But I like the speech too. So like, I don't know. Anyway, but I love
the last time I watched that season, one of the things that really stood out for me was Amanda and Michael together. And like, I know you see more of that in second season, but like, I think about that scene when they're under the umbrellas together.
Yes.
And it just really hits. And that's, how many times have we talked about, we enjoy seeing parent-child relationships in Trek. And that's one that I really like. I like this version of Amanda in Strange New Worlds with Spock as well. Like, I just like this Amanda. I think she does it in a way that does the character a lot of justice, and it's really compelling.
Yeah. Oh, and when Sarah comes up in the rain and she calls her daughter, and then smirks.
That whole scene. That whole scene
gives her the badge.
I know.
Yeah.
That's coming soon here.
And Ash, I really like Ash.
Yeah.
I didn't like him as much first go around, but I really got that character this time.
I think the more you watch and the more you think about Michael's full journey, he is so important in this part of it. And you appreciate that more as you see things that ripple from their time together later on. And I really like that. And somebody I saw was talking about how they forgot that they put an alias out there for the character Voke.
Yeah.
It was probably Thad again. Look, here we are talking about Thad again. But and there was the fake IMDb page, and there was, the picture.
Twitter account.
It was so fun. Yes, the Twitter account.
They reposted their birthday or something.
I know.
I saw
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it too. Like, so funny. Funny. And like Jim always says, you would not have seen that or the Mirror Universe coming if you were not an obsessive Trek fan. And I appreciate that too.
Yeah. The Mirror Universe, I liked that a lot more this time. I love Lorca, not as a Terran, but this time around, it didn't bother me. I actually enjoyed it. So I think I just had to settle into the season. I have a higher rating of it this time around. Really enjoyed it.
I just like Discovery.
So I think I'm just going to go to season 2 and keep going.
Yeah, it's like I said, once I get my everything finalized for this show, that's where I'm going. And especially now since, I heard that whatever that big sci-fi festival in Texas is, in the 20-something of March, is going to premiere Discovery's first episode or 2, which means it's probably not going to be the end of April when it comes out, because you're not going to wait a month and have people sit on spoilers for a month. It's probably closer to the beginning of the month. So
Yeah, and did you see the
I can't wait
screenshot
anymore.
of the particular ship?
Yes. Yes.
The Romulan scout
Oh.
ship.
Oh, yes. Romulans have such cool ships. Such
Yeah.
cool ships.
Yeah, I have that one. I just love it. And funny enough, like so my primary watch right now is Discovery, but my secondary is TNG season 3. And so
Oh,
I
that's your
wrapped up.
favorite.
It is. I just needed to go back to it. It's
Sometimes you just need comforting things.
I absolutely I did. So and they're different because Discovery, I'm not always in the mood for it. Like, oh, this is an exhausting day. And this is an exhausting episode, so the defector. But oddly enough, like today I finished up the Vengeance Factor driving to a school and then coming home, well, here's the defector. And I was like, yes, this is perfect because we just got this news
Yeah.
about Romulans and yeah. I
That is perfect.
can't wait for more Romulan stuff and Navarre.
Yes. 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 Please bring on the wedding on Navarre, like whatever episode that was where we did the whole fan fiction of they're going to get ready. Yes, please, please, please.
Well,
and now that we know that Saru has an incredible opportunity,
yes. Yep.
Maybe he'll be like the Vulcan ambassador.
That's what I tweeted. Yeah, Vulcan ambassador. Yep.
Yep. Fingers crossed.
I'm
if they
for
don't
it.
end happily, I'm gonna be so sad. Like, they don't have to get married. I just want them to not be dead or traumatized and together at the end of it. Like, Saru needs to be happy.
We just need their 2 fingers touching. That's all I need.
Oh, yep.
And that's the
that
last
would be
scene.
absolutely fine.
Whatever. I'm for
Could
it.
you imagine if they did do the wedding, though? What Tarina's wedding dress would look like? Like, between what they're doing with T'Pring in Strange New Worlds and like the purple outfit that T'Pol wears in Enterprise, like I'm imagining a combo that would be so gorgeous. I'm manifesting it. Come on, Bernadette Croft, you can do that.
And what is Saru dressed in? Is it a dress uniform or is it like a Kelpian?
No, it's something flowy.
Tux.
It's something that looks like seaweed. A Kelpian tux. Yes, that's exactly. I don't know what that.
But it's kind of like a seaweedy shawl.
It looked like seaweed. Yes,
lays over, drapes over him.
Yes. Oh my God. Please call me, Bernadette. I have ideas.
Yes. We can't execute them, but we can give them to you.
Absolutely. For free. All I want is to see them manifested. Oh my God, and I just had a weather alert flash. Hold on, I gotta dismiss it because it takes over everything. Yeah. Yes, I know we're under a winter storm warning. It's been like that for the past 12 hours. Thank you. Sorry, that's every Midwesterner in the middle of January. Just like, yeah, there's gonna be more snow. And then it's gonna be bitter cold. So this is gonna be a fun long weekend.
Oh no.
It's gonna be like 3 degrees on Sunday. High up.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. I was just watching The Vengeance Factor today, or listening in the car, and Riker orders water 5 degrees from the replicator. I'm like, 5 degrees? Isn't it frozen water? It's just ice. Cup of ice?
That would be funny.
Like, that's what he ordered.
He's doing Celsius?
Isn't that close to 0? That's, I guess it's not frozen,
it's
but
really cold water.
That's like right there. Anyway, yeah. It made me go, Sorry.
No, that's fine. I have missed us talking because I've missed these silly, like,
the
random tangent giggles. This is how The Forge Remain Below became the joke that it is now.
Look, I did the dishes today, and I think about it every single time now.
So do I. And when I found my Jordy as a funky alien, like, hanging out in the basement yesterday, I was digging for something else. And I was like, oh, well, guess who's getting a picture of this now? It's such a weird thing to have a figure of.
My eBay account knows me because it suggested a visor that you can display on a display stand on your desk. Weren't we talking about that? And I was like, I don't have room.
I would still get one of those.
But
I know.
yeah. Okay. So Paul.
All right. Focus.